Good morning, Mrs. Beyondich.
Good morning, Principal Mo Kelke.
How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. It's a beautiful morning. I've got my coffee mug ready to go.
That's a really nice coffee mug you've got there. Why don't you tell us about that?
So our 501c3 is selling these fabulous Stream coffee mugs for $20, and we deliver. So all you have to do is call the school and we'll deliver one to you. Only $20.
That is a beautiful coffee mug and a great deal. You get to support the nonprofit arm of the Stream Academy, which was founded in 2011, right?
That's correct.
And that's a little tease for morning coffee next week. I understand
next, June 10th.
Week after next, we're doing the financial report and overview of our 501c3. And that's pretty exciting.
That is exciting.
Welcome to Morning Coffee, those of you out there in YouTube land and parents that are on the line with us. You can't see people who are online with us on the YouTube feed because unless there are videos on, and a lot of our parents like to call in and be sort of incognito and just hang out and listen, and that's totally fine with us. It's a Wednesday and the school year is over, and it is sort of a shocking change for us. It was a strange fourth quarter, and here we are. What do we have on the docket for morning coffee? The last morning coffee of May. Well, the first thing we have is the mission statement of our school. Anchorage Stream Academy empowers students to be involved learners, critical thinkers, and engaged citizens who are inspired by the natural world. Which I think is a beautiful mission statement, by the way. Our agenda today, today's the only morning coffee we have scheduled that we don't have any guests. Today's kind of a transition morning coffee from during the school year morning coffees to the few that we've got coming up here before Mrs. Beyondich and I go on break. So Mrs. Beyondich and I we work until June 12th. So we're here for 2 more weeks after this. And we are going into the office. For those of you who are interested or need to connect with us in the building, we are going into the office on Tuesdays and Thursdays. So Mrs. Beyondich and I will be in the office tomorrow, and then again on Tuesday and Thursday next week and the week after. And then we go on a little bit of break. Summer break is kind of a misnomer for us. We have 4 weeks off. Yeah, it's a nice 4-week break for us. And we come back, is it July? What's the Monday in July we come back, Mrs. Beyondich? Just like July 13th, I believe.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not ready to come back yet. I haven't left yet.
I hear you. I'm always ready. It always seems like a short break for me to have 4 weeks off, but if you know me, I don't sit still well. I'm somebody who always has to be busy.
I can confirm that.
That's why it's hilarious when I talk about retirement, because retirement for me is probably going to mean whatever other position or other way I'm involved in Stream, besides what I'm doing now. Yeah, so I'm always ready after that 4-week break, but I'm looking forward to it. It's been a long, strange, interesting school year. This is my 20th year. Did I tell you that, Mrs. Beyondich? This is my 20th year in public education.
Well, congratulations.
Yeah, and what a way what a 20th year, right? Like, it's just, in the 20 years of doing this is definitely the most interesting year I've ever had in public education. That's for sure.
I know. So I think that last year when we had the earthquake and we all said, whoa, this is the most interesting thing we've ever had. Yep. We got one up to this year
we trumped it significantly. Yeah, it's interesting. It's important how we talk with kids and we really stress the importance of resilience, and I think it really drives home how important it is to be well prepared. One of the things I'm so proud of, and I think uh, as this time goes and I reflect on this experience more, I'll continue to grow more impressed by and proud of, is the preparedness and resilience of our school and our staff. Um, we were ready. We were really ready, and I think it's fair to say much more ready than a traditional neighborhood school could be. We've, since we opened the school, Google Classroom has been a required part of our teachers' instruction and planning for us, which is something I've always believed, that we had to do, is include the online platform. And, really this concept of taking education to a place where it can be accessible 24/7, where it can be accessible anywhere, anytime for kids. It just frees up everyone so much. And so because of that mindset, and because of how incredible our staff is, we were really ready to embrace, a switch to online learning.
And we're really preparing our students for what comes next in the working world, because now they have all of these, are developing all of these skills that's going to lead them on.
Yeah, definitely. One of our parents, Nikki, has her hand up with the little blue hand. Nikki, go ahead. Good morning. I'm going to unmute you, Nikki. I think I have the power. Did you want to chime in?
There we go.
There we go. Good morning, Nikki.
Okay.
Good to see you.
Good morning. Hey, I have to show you what, speaking about anywhere. Let's see. I don't know if I've got, am I on?
Yes.
Sorry, I'm on my phone. So I'm just trying to figure out.
It looks like there's something beautiful behind you. Oh, wow.
Look at this.
It's beautiful.
We're down in Seward today.
That's awesome. And you still joined us for morning coffee, which is great. It looks beautiful down there today.
I was a little late. Oh, look, I think we've got a little otter out there, maybe. I don't know.
Oh,
it's probably too far to see him. Can you see the little, he's popping out there. Oh my gosh. Yes, I know. I had to go take the dog for a quick walk, but yes, I'm a little late, but yes. So I thought, oh, I get to join him from Seward.
Thanks for joining us from Seward. That's incredible. And it looks like there's nobody else in sight. So that's perfect too.
One guy down there, but yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah, I was in Homer a couple of weeks ago and doing exactly what you're doing, walking the beach. They show the crowded beaches in other places, and I'm so thankful that we can go walk an Alaskan beach, and we can have, instead of 6 feet of social distancing, I think we can have about 600 yards.
Oh yeah.
Perfect. Well, thank you for sharing with us, Nikki. That's awesome.
Yes.
Outside every day. One of the things we were going to talk a little bit about today, and that's a good transition, is just, wrapping up this year and yet looking ahead to next year. And so our staff has been working and planning, and will continue really. I won't bug teachers for a while. I want them to take a break. But we will be planning for what the fall could look like. And we talked about, I'm so proud that we were ready. We were ready to transition to online learning, and really our teachers were prepared and embraced this challenge. And I want us to be ready for whatever might come in the fall. Good morning, puppy. What's his name?
Yeah, this is China.
China, perfect.
Yeah.
Like the hot springs.
Yeah, like the hot springs.
Good morning, China. Good morning, China. Who's a good doggy?
Here, say it again. I've got my headset in.
Oh, okay.
Chinky, listen.
Good morning, China. Who's a good doggy? Who's a good doggy? China's having fun on the beach in Seward and enjoying morning coffee with us.
Oh, yes.
So speaking of the outdoors, and next year we've been talking about this, the concept, the idea of an outdoor classroom, and really thinking about when we come back in the fall. I think regardless of how we come back in the fall, growing our outside every day, learning outside every day approach to really include more outdoor classrooms. Our teachers take our students outside, as stream fans know, every day. But we've talked about a couple ideas. One, I talked with our building manager, Mr. Millions at Wayland, about possibly building some kind of outside classroom. And that would look like a pavilion with a deck, a platform, and a covering, so that even if the weather's a little inclement, you could still have a class able to gather outside. And then just another thing we've talked about with outside classrooms is how to more formally utilize our park that we're right up against, and then the other parks that are nearby. And so possibly partnering with the parks to develop some outdoor classroom spaces. When Dr. Zink was on, she talked about the same idea, that one of the ways we can look at continuing education and mitigating the effects of COVID-19 is to be outdoors, because fresh air and a little wind, and of course it's easier to have some distance. Those are all things that really significantly reduce the risk of spreading germs and spreading a virus. So that's one of the things we're looking at for coming back in the fall: how to enhance and build on outdoor classroom spaces. What do you think, Mrs. Beyondich?
I'm excited about having an outdoor classroom, whether it's just a temporary structure or whether it's a more permanent structure, because we really do go outside to learn every day. And this will just make it a little bit easier to carry the microscopes out or to have papers out, and have some way to be more organized in our outdoor classroom.
Yeah, I think we're really fortunate that Steve, the building facility manager at Wayland, is such a good partner. It bears reminding. And for those who are new, we're just finishing our 4th year, and we have leased Wayland Baptist University all 4 years. We are working actively and have worked really hard on eventually building or moving into our own facility. But Wayland has been such a good partner. I was just telling Mrs. Beyondich about how after our first year in the backyard of Wayland Baptist, Steve had the fences pushed out about 30 feet in 2 directions to really expand the space. He pushed them right up to their property lines and landscape, so that we had a much bigger yard space. And when we talked to Steve yesterday about possibly building sort of I think a pavilion, is there a better word that I'm looking for? Like a deck with 4 posts and a covering. I don't know if there's a better word, and I'm an English major, but we talked to Steve about building some sort of pavilion that we could use as an outdoor classroom space, and gather kids on and so forth. I can always see when something's a possibility with him when you bring it up, because he kind of perks up and starts getting into the conversation. And Steve's such a good partner, because he perked right up, and I think it's entirely possible that we can get that built, which is cool.
Maybe gazebo.
A gazebo.
Gazebo. That sounds wonderful.
Yeah, a pavilion and a gazebo, or a gazebo. Yeah, I think it would be cool. I envision, like Miss Kodelman likes to take her students when it's nice, when the weather allows, she likes to take her students out to the backyard at Stream. And just, I have some good pictures from the fall of kids just kind of, I think some of them are on our social media, kids laying in the backyard reading, just laying out in the grass reading books. And so I think it's some sort of a covered pavilion or gazebo could really enhance that. So outdoor classrooms, it's one of the ways we're really looking at mitigating the concerns and risks when we come back in the fall. I think if we did some sort of a staggered schedule, what I would look at, I'm going to be, one of my tasks I've given myself for the next couple of weeks is to run schedule models. I love scheduling. I do all of our scheduling. I build our master schedule and do all of our student scheduling myself because I enjoy it. It's a giant puzzle. Like, if you know anyone who likes puzzles, they would like scheduling, because scheduling and building schedules and scheduling students is a giant puzzle. So one of the tasks I've given myself is to run schedule models for all possibilities of coming back in the fall. And we talked about how we want to be ready. We want our staff and our family to be ready. I want us to be ready with a schedule no matter what the scenario is in the fall. So I want to, I have our master schedule built for regular school. I want to be able to say, here's our schedule if we come back on a staggered schedule where, we have students come into the building part of the time, and we're breaking that up. And here's a schedule if we're primarily distance learning still, if we have a real bad second spike or something. So I think that schedule is going to involve as much built-in outdoor classroom, outdoor time as I can possibly fit. It should be interesting. Once again, you are joining us for morning coffee. Today, it's Monday, Wednesday, May. Every time I say the date on morning coffee, I mess up the date. I don't know what it is. I do know what day it is. It's Wednesday, May 27th. And we've been talking about outdoor education and the interesting school year that we had this year. What other things do we want to make sure we update people on or share this morning, Mrs. Beyondich?
Well, as we wrap up the year, we know that we still have a few loose ends. One of the loose ends that we have are the yearbooks. And so our yearbooks, we had, the delivery had been delayed due to the COVID crisis in the lower 48 and how Life Touch's printing facility had gotten put on reduced staff. We just recently heard that the Life Touch facility in the lower 48 was able to complete the printing of our books. And hopefully our books have shipped. They shipped yesterday, we hope. If not yesterday, then today. And so they should be here within 2 or 3 weeks. And as soon as they get here, even if we're already off calendar, I'm going to go ahead and make sure that all those books get delivered either through the postal service or drive them to your house. And so that's the good news, is that we think that we're getting much closer to delivery of our yearbooks. So that's excellent. We still do have a few extras. And when I deliver your yearbooks, if you want to buy a coffee mug from our 501c3, our 501c3 uses the profits from this fundraiser to support both long-term and short-term goals. And we're going to go over that on June 10th when the 501c presents their annual report.
Awesome. Thank you, Mrs. Beyondich. Thank you for ordering those awesome coffee mugs that we're so excited to have. We have a good picture on one of our slides. Let me go to it. Oh, right here. There you go. Those are the beautiful, and I'm not drinking out of mine today. I feel terrible, but I have misplaced it in my home, and I spent 10 minutes searching for it before morning coffee today. I will find it. It just goes to show I'm going to need more than one Stream Academy beautiful Rapids coffee mug. I'm going to need 2 or 3 so that I can always have my coffee out of my Stream mug. Of course, as always on morning coffee, I'm repping my Stream gear. So we do have some 2 more morning coffees, and we hope it's really cool. We have parents joining us online today, and we have parents joining us on YouTube. And I always hear from parents who say they like having the archived link on YouTube, and they go back and watch. It always makes me happy to hear that people go back and, because they can't be on it at 8 o'clock on specific day, they do go back and check out what we had to say. So that's cool. So we do have 2 more events that we really want to build up, because we have guest speakers. So next Wednesday, we have a TEDx speaker, Dr. Mary Beth Lee, and she talks about something that's really gerund to mission and vision at Stream, right? It's integrating arts into STEM, and the STREAM acronym, or the STREAM name, is STEM with research and the arts for the R and the A. So she's got, 5 out of the 6 right there. And as a professor at UAF, I'm sure she does a lot of research as well. So she will talk about microbial worlds. If you want a sneak preview, if you want to see what Dr. Mary Beth Lee is all about, there's a really cool, it's TEDx Fairbanks. There's a really cool TED Talk, and so you can get an intro to her, and then we'll get our own little mini TED Talk next Wednesday. So I'm really excited for that. And then our last Wednesday before Mrs. Bionich and I go on a little hiatus, a little 4-week break, our last Wednesday will be, we'll talk about our nonprofit arm of Stream Academy, Stream Anchorage, the 501c3, and Mrs. Bionich is on the 501c3 board. It's the one aspect of Stream that I am not involved with, that I intentionally, as the leader of the school side, stay separate from and allow the 501c3 to operate, because it is supposed to be something that operates separate of the school, as a separate entity of the school. And so I'm super thankful for Mrs. Bionich and the other members of our 501c3 for keeping that alive and looking to the future, of our school. And so they'll talk about that. They'll talk about the goals of the 501c3, how you can get involved in our 501c3 and maybe help to raise a little money, or that kind of stuff. And then we also have our 3rd or 4th elected official. We've been good at getting our elected officials on, which has been really cool. We have another elected official coming on, Representative Lance Pruitt. And we're really excited to have Lance on. He's very knowledgeable and really, I've always enjoyed talking to him. I'm a big supporter of Stream. Came by school earlier in the year just to drop off a bunch of Great Harvest bread for our staff, unsolicited, no reason other than, hey, I want to support you. You're in our neighborhood. Wanted to come say hi. It was really nice. So Lance will be on. Legislative session wrapped up, and I believe they've got everything finalized, right? So we can learn a little bit more about that. So those are our next 2 Wednesdays. Kind of excited for those. Very excited for those. Yeah, so we talked earlier on morning coffee today. Mrs. Bionich and I are working until the end, till June 13th or 12th, Friday, June 12th, I believe it is. And then we are on a 4-week break. We come back Monday, I believe it's July 13th. So it's right at 4 weeks. We are in the office on Tuesdays and Thursdays. We'll be in the office tomorrow, and then Tuesday and Thursday the following 2 weeks. If anybody needs to drop something off, how many Chromebooks are still out there in the wild, roaming free, that need to be herded up and brought home?
We have a few out there. We have some students who've stay and do online learning through July, and so they're keeping those until school comes back into session. But we have about 13 or 14 more that we're trying to collect.
Not bad. So we checked out over 40 Chromebooks to our families, and we only have about 13 to collect. And yeah, that's an important point, Mrs. Bionich. Some of our families have said we are signed up for classes over the summer. We want to continue with our online learning over the summer, and we've allowed those families to hang on to those Chromebooks so they can use them over the summer. So that is an option, and that's totally okay with us. Anything we can do, of course, to support continued learning of our kids. So yeah, if we have a Chromebook or something else you want to drop by school, just call and let us know you're coming by on a Tuesday or Thursday, and we'll be there. So one of the things I wanted to do, because today I did want to talk about the school year we are wrapping up. one of the things I wanted to do is talk about our school climate and connectedness. And that's what I'm going to talk about in a minute. But we have a parent with their hand up. Miss Reed, go ahead.
Hey, I had a quick question that links to the topics. I got here a couple minutes late, so you might have already covered this, but two of the topics I already heard you talk about, which was some of the students are doing stuff over the summer. And you talked about trying to figure out the fall schedule depending on how this whole situation evolves. When you're looking at that fall schedule, are you also looking at the possibility of making materials for fall classes available to students who are already registered, maybe at the end of July or August online, so they can kind of get a jump start of just reviewing a little bit of those materials before we start back into the official school year, if it fits into the family schedule? Just so that when they do come back into the classroom, they kind of have their head centered for that new learning environment. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's a great question. The only roadblock to that would be when we're able to bring our teachers back online, because they're on break a little longer than us. But there are still things I can do, as starting in mid-July, to start to gear up for that and allow kids to start to access things early. And it's a great idea. So a lot of our students use Apex, and not Apex, sorry. A lot of the students in the district use Apex classes, and so those are kind of a year-round option. We use an online math curriculum called Alex, and it's from Houghton Mifflin, and it's a really good, really robust online math curriculum. You can use it as a standalone curriculum. We use it as a supplement. But you can do pre-algebra, algebra, geometry. We've had students go all the way up through algebra 2 on Alex. And so one of the things that I do when I start scheduling students when I come back in July is I start to identify those higher math students, and all of those students have Alex accounts that we pay for. So all of our students who are, I think we'll have one student in algebra 2, and we'll have probably 10 to 12 in geometry, and then about 20 or so in algebra, and then a lot of students, in pre-algebra. What we start to do is put in the order for the new Alex subscription. So one of the things I could do is roll out those Alex subscriptions early, and send home the username, password, access code, and any student that is in higher math that wants to get started would be great. I mean, it would be a nice jump start in math. And then for students who don't use Alex, Ms. Staker uses MathWiz a lot more than Alex for the 6th graders. And so same thing, we can probably get those MathWiz accounts activated and up and going. So that's another good aspect to add to our planning, Melissa. Thank you. It's a good idea.
Can I ask a follow-up that may require a little bit of clarification? I understand how funding for charter schools works. The district has talked a lot on a broader scale about how they're going to make a really robust summer program available to any ASD students, including having early access to academics in August. Are they making any allowances for charter school students to be able to access those early resources over the course of the summer?
Yeah, my understanding is, charter schools, because we receive our funds directly, we're mostly responsible for anything that, paying for anything that we do. And that usually would include online classes. But my understanding is whatever, we're sort of talking about in addition to what ASD offers. My understanding is whatever ASD offers will be for charter school students as well. So if ASD rolls out, here is an Apex course that you can enroll in, like they did, at the end of the year for, they offered some classes for 8th graders over the summer and so forth, that's available to our students as well. I mean, the worst case scenario, Melissa, would be that they, for some reason, said, we're offering these classes starting in July that you can access early. And if, your charter school students would have to pay for them because of how the budget works, and we would pay for those. We would pay for those courses. There's no way we would deny our kids that access.
Okay.
Good question.
Hopefully they won't ask that of
I
us
don't
to
think
make
I
those
don't think they
allowances.
will. I don't think they will, but we'll be prepared for that.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
So Mrs. Bionich, we need to start a July return to-do list, a big board. And on the top of that list, to remind me, is purchase our Alex subscriptions. So as soon as I get back and we open our new fiscal year in July, I need to purchase probably about 100 subscriptions for Alex and start to divvy those up and set those classes up and notify those families early. Hey, it may be July, but if you'd like to start your pre-algebra or your algebra class, here's the access. It would be kind of interesting to track that data too and see what level of engagement, you know, we had, how many students jumped on and early and got started early. The cool thing about Alex, and I've had students do this, the cool thing about the Alex courses is they are full standalone math courses, are like, you know, aligned with Common Core standards, and we've quality control checked these. So we had a student early on, Jasmine, I think I can say her, at least just say her first name, Jasmine. And Jasmine is super smart cookie. And Jasmine went all the way up through and completed Algebra 2 in her time with us. And we used Jasmine to spot check the Alex classes. And what we did is she did geometry completely on Alex. And then we gave her the district high school geometry final, and we gave it to her cold. So geometry is geometry, right? Except the way you deliver and the things you focus on, and, you know, may be different depending on different courses. And so to give someone the ASD final cold when they hadn't gone through ASD's curriculum and, you know, scope and sequence, you know, is difficult, because she went through an online course and she passed that geometry final with flying colors, well over 80%. And if, you know, what Mr. B said was he looked over the things she didn't do well with, the few things she didn't get on the test, said it was just a matter of, you know, a quick refresher and like showing her how they were expecting her to answer the question, and she probably would have got 100% on it. And then we did the same thing with Algebra 2. She went through all of Algebra 2 on Alex, and we gave her the Algebra 2 final, and again, passed it with flying colors. So you can do an entire math course on Alex. And the cool thing is, what I tell students all the time is that's not time bound. So if you want to do algebra, or if you want to do pre-algebra in, you know, 4 months and finish it, then I tell our kids all the time, I'll put you in algebra. Like, you know, we don't have to wait a semester or a year, take that time bound piece away, which is actually one of the really cool aspects of online learning, right? Kids can learn more at their own pace and they can accelerate. Good questions. Thanks for jumping in and getting some conversation going, Melissa. We appreciate it. I want to switch gears really quick and talk about a little bit about school climate. I am sharing my screen, right? Can you see the climate survey? No? Okay. I need to share my screen again. All right, how about now? So we refocused our energy this year on school climate and culture significantly. It's always been a priority of mine. It's always been a priority at Stream. School culture comes first. School culture is so important. And last year we experienced a little bit of turbulence with our school culture. And I think a lot of it, you know, could be attributed to the disruption of the earthquake in the middle of the year, and also just that really, you know, being at 150 students was a big jump from the first 2 years where we started off with about 75 and then went to 100, and going up to 150 students really, you know, challenged us to adjust things. And so one of the things I had to do was admit that I can't be the principal and the counselor, which is really hard for me. And we hired a counselor. And so we also just really put a lot of resources into our advisory program as sort of the heart and soul of what we do at Stream is advisory. And we adopted a curriculum for advisory called Lion's Quest, which focuses on social emotional learning, and also gave Ms. Kotelman an extra prep period because she's amazing and was really dedicated to strengthening our advisory. And she worked so hard all year with our new counselor to really build and enhance our advisory program. We implemented talking circles and advisory and the Lions Quest curriculum. And so a third thing I'd say that we did that was important was really brought back school assemblies. I just realized that the prior year we hadn't brought our whole school together in a positive ways, not nearly enough. And that was on me. I for some reason, we just didn't schedule as many assemblies. And so I'll never make that mistake again, because I was reminded how important it is to bring your whole school together and celebrate and have positive things. So we did assemblies much more frequently. And I also started gathering our students every morning in the lobby before school and just giving them a positive launch for the day. So we really focused in a lot of ways. You know, we put our money in terms of hiring another position, and our resources, you know, giving Ms. Kotelman another prep, buying a curriculum, and our time and my time really put into enhancing school culture. And it showed up in the school climate culture survey. And I wanted to just touch on that a little bit. This is all accessible to the public too. So if this tease of data excites you, and I love data and I love the culture survey, make sure you go online later on ASD, and we can probably even put a link out there and check out this data a little more in depth. Nikki, did you have a question?
I do. So will the advisory teachers stay the same for the entire 3 years?
Yes.
Okay.
That's our vision with advisory. That's something that if we wanted to change would have to go to our board, because I think it's one of those things that's kind of, it's in our charter.
Okay.
Because we've talked about, the teachers have talked about, there are a couple challenges with that. They don't all teach all grade levels. So for example, if you have, you know, if you teach, like Miss Dreger teaches all 6th grade. So when she's in the 3-year cycle of, she's got 6th graders, it's really nice because she's got 6th graders that she really knows them well. But then when they're in 7th and 8th and she doesn't see them in classes, there can be a little disconnect there. But overall, we find there's way more positives with keeping that group together. And really it's about keeping that group of kids together, because we want advisory to be a family within our family. We want it to be a tighter support network and a safe space for our kids to really grow and build those connections over 3 years. So yeah, the short answer, and I never give short answers, I got to work on that. The short answer is our advisory groups stay together and stay with the same teacher 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. So as long as we don't have a teacher move on, which luckily happens very rarely at Stream, then they would be together with the same teacher. We do change advisors once in a while. Once in a while, an advisory group is not the right fit for a student. And we really try to stay away from doing that. And I put it back on the student immediately when they come and ask if they can switch advisory. Usually it's something that's, you know, a short-term conflict with another student. We can help them work through. But the first thing I do is say, you have to talk to your advisor first. I'm not going to change an advisory without you having that conversation with your advisor, because they care about you, and trying to work through that with them. But we do occasionally switch students if it's really not a good fit. Doesn't happen very often, but we do. And of course, if there's a parent request for that, I act pretty quickly on that. Parents are the boss. So I just want to look through the school climate results and highlight a couple of things. You can see the little green arrow is, or if there's a red, that is increase or decrease over the previous year. And then you can see the percentage are results favorable. So it's an interesting way to parse it, and one that Ms. Kotelman has pointed out over the years. She's disgruntled with how they do this. There's 5 options on each of the questions, and it's agree, strongly agree, disagree, strongly disagree, and then there's the 5th one, which, you know, in my statistics class they taught, that you're taught, like, if you have that middle meh, as the kids say, response, I think it says somewhat agree, somewhat disagree. It's a very neutral response. people will gravitate towards that neutral middle response. And if you give 4 options, which essentially like you kind of have to pick a side, you get clearer results. So the favorable is only the 2, you know, agree or strongly agree, or if you know, if it's a question that it's better to disagree, right? Like my school's being ruined by bullies, the favorable response would be disagree, strongly disagree. That's how they measure the percentage that you see, and you don't count that middle ground. So it's super interesting. So anyway, you can see the results were, you know, favorable responses. The little arrow here is increase or decrease over the last survey. And then I always go right to this one here for comparison. And that's to the Anchorage School District as a whole. So how are we doing? How are we doing over last year's survey? And then how did we do compared to the district? And so you can just kind of take a look at, these are the categories, and then each of these categories you can drill down and look much more closely at. And so here, I don't like to go right to the things that I want to improve first, but here's one that jumps out at me that I'm personally going to focus on and work on for, you know, for improvement next year. It's cultural connectedness. So about 42% of our students had a favorable response to our cultural connectedness, cultural identity, cultural responsiveness, equity, involving, you know, families and doing things that, you know, fit with their cultures in the community. And we increased it a little over last year. We're still not as strong as the Anchorage School District as a whole. And so I really want to delve into that more and work on that one. I suspect it connects to, I'd like to look at other charter school data, because I suspect a neighborhood school tends to be more representative of the community around it. And we draw from all over. And so you know, and some of the neighborhood schools have a more established identity, you know, as well. Like we're the Panthers, and, you know, that kind of stuff tends to build that cultural connectedness. So interesting one. This is one that I like to highlight, high expectations. We had a 77% favorable response to high expectations. And I know this conversation comes up with parents. Do we have high expectations because we have a policy of not, you know, of limiting homework? And when we say that we give this misconception that gets out there that we don't assign homework or we have less homework. What we talk about with homework is important. There's also lots of research that says you don't want to overdo it. And there's plenty of research that says if you pile on a ton of homework, it has a negative detrimental effect on kids' education. Like, you know, you have to balance high expectations and pushing kids and preparing kids with not making them hate school and learning. So it is more important that they love school and that they love learning. And so we do give homework. Our requirements around homework is that it's intentional and it's targeted. And so when I say we don't give as much or we limit homework, what I really mean, what we talk about with the staff is we don't give busy work. We don't give word searches and, you know, sort of rote memorization type things nearly as much. We don't give homework for homework's sake. We give homework for education's sake. I tell our teachers our homework should never be a new concept. Your kid should never have homework they don't know how to do. That's wrong. It's wrong. It's our job to teach. Homework is reinforcing those skills. And really often for us, you know, because we try to make real world connections, homework for us is an extension of learning. And so that's not as easy as my kid has 3 worksheets to do. What that looks like for us is Ms. Kotelman always has homework and doesn't, you know, still is working on how to communicate that, because homework is, we're working on this essay, on this project in class, and you need to be doing pieces of this at home and keeping up and managing that. And so because it's more independent like that and more, you know, realistic, it puts more onus on kids, and it's less, you know, it's less cut and dried, but it is there. Homework is very often extension and working on and completing projects. So anyway, to go back to high expectations, like the proof is always in the pudding here. We have always ranked highly in high expectations. we had a 77% favorable response, which is, above the district as a whole of 75% high expectations for kids. Our peer climate, this is always a tough area on the climate survey. As you can see, Anchorage School District had a 33% favorable peer climate response. Ours was 43%. It took a little bit of a hit last year, and then it came up 17 points. So I'm really proud of that. And the reason this is always a low one is if you really look at, dig into the questions, kids are super critical of their relationships with each other and how they treat each other, and it shows up in the survey. So this is all about how kids feel they treat each other and their peers treat them. And yet we had a pretty good response on that. Respectful climate, I love this one, 64%, 10 points above the district's mark, went up 12 points. That, we talk all the time about respect at our school and how, we treat everyone, we treat each other with dignity and respect at Stream, and it shows up here, so it's good. And then student involvement, this is a really important one to me, and there are questions specific on here about me. There are questions that actually, say the principal asks you about your ideas, or, and you feel like rules are fair, and you're treated fairly by the principal if you get in trouble and that kind of thing. And so it's one I pay really close attention to. We had a 67% favorable response, and the district average is 45%. So I think that speaks well. So overall, that's a little introduction to the school climate connectedness survey. I love this last one, that would you recommend your school to another student? 82% of our students favorable response. And remember, that doesn't include if they pick that middle, somewhat agree, somewhat disagree. And so very, very few of our students said that they would not recommend our school. 82% favorable, recommend our school to other students. And you can see that's over 20 points above the district average. So that's a little sneak peek or preview or overview of our school climate connectedness survey. You can read all this wonderful information online if you're more interested. Wow, that was a long period of me talking. Mrs. Bionich, what do you think?
I think crunching those data, looking at that data and crunching the numbers gives some people a lot of joy, which I think it might give you a lot of joy. And then some people are like, oh my goodness.
Yes.
Yeah. So, but the data is interesting, and it is linked on the main ASD website, so you can always check that out. And I think it's a valuable information to have. I'm excited about next year trying to work on cultural awareness. We've the last couple of years had that I Am project, and so I think as that project continues to develop and students grow from year to year in that I Am project, I think we're going to see like an increase in their cultural awareness at our school. So
one of the things I've considered, and I'm kind of trying to sort through how to do it, is, I guess if I had to come up with put a term to it, I would call it a diversity advisory council. And so I've played with the idea, and I'm sorting through how to implement the idea of putting together an advisory council or an advisory committee on diversity, and that would be probably comprised of mostly of parents. I would specifically reach out to parents and ask for interested people to meet with me once a month and discuss issues around culture, race, and diversity at our school, and just help me to continue to see what what's hard for me is when we have an issue arise around diversity or specifically around race. What I've often found when I've reflected back is I don't know what I don't know, and so I've often had the response when something has come to me, a concern or just a topic around that topic. I've often had the response of, I had no idea. I didn't even think didn't have the construct to think about that. And so really it just speaks to education, right? Like understanding perspectives, different cultural background, and cultural perspectives, and just having that awareness, not being, blindsided by something or surprised by, I didn't know what I didn't know kind of a thing. And so that's one thought I've been kicking around in terms of that cultural connectedness as a small group of people who probably fairly informally, I would get to meet with me maybe on Zoom like this once a month and talk around issues of race, culture, and diversity.
I think that's an excellent point to carry forward to our students, is that we are lifelong learners, and this is an opportunity for the staff to learn as well, and bring our students along with us. And it's a really good example for the students to know that this is kind of like a project for us too.
It is. Yeah.
Project-based learning is the core of what we do.
Yeah, I mean, a specific example, just to put myself out there a little bit, I had a couple of students come to me and express how they were feeling, and I'm really, really thankful we've built a culture where students can walk in my office and say, I'm upset about something, and they felt that I didn't do enough to recognize and to highlight and to celebrate African American History Month. And to be honest, like, my reaction on the inside was devastated. I was devastated that these inadvertently, completely inadvertently, I made these students to feel that we weren't celebratory of African American history and culture, and the rich and deep and beautiful tapestry of African American history in our country, the poetry and music and civil rights and all of the great things that are out there. I didn't do enough to trumpet and highlight and celebrate during the time that is set aside and designated for that. And so that's the type of thing to where we certainly didn't make any conscious or intentional decisions not to. And I checked in with teachers to make sure, and of course teachers individually did things to incorporate and celebrate and highlight African American History Month, but I didn't. And so I can't even say it wasn't that our school didn't. What they specifically came to say is you didn't, Mr. Mokelke, you didn't in your morning launch, talk about or highlight, specific things or people or historical figures, and it bothered them. And so it's just, again, it's an awareness, it's an education, it's knowing what you don't know and building that efficacy up. And so that'll be my project next year, is to never let that happen again, to never have students come to me and say, we feel like you didn't honor or highlight our heritage. I don't want that to happen again.
Nikki Morris has a question. Her hand is in the air.
Actually, more so a comment, but growing up, one of my friends in high school, one of my close friends, is an Alaska Native, and we're both educators now, and like talking about it now, it's interesting because like her perspective of being part of a school culture, she felt like, now this is information now that we know, not when we were in high school. I mean, for us, we just knew that she was a friend and that we loved her for who she was, and it didn't, to us as kids, it didn't really matter whether she was Alaska Native or whatever, so but it is interesting from her perspective now, just really wrapping her mind around and wanting education to be wrapped around the idea that we honor that as her culture. And so just like you said, it's just a learning experience that we all kind of go through, and we I think you always say this, we do better when we know better, right? So I think that, I just think that, you know, if we just keep learning and keep listening, and that's always the good thing, that we can do better from there.
Yes, thank you. I appreciate that perspective. Keep learning and keep listening. I think, you know, I talked early on in the show that this is my 20th year in education, of course, so that leads to a lot of reflection for me. And if I've learned anything about good leadership, it starts with listening. And I had a mentor who was a superintendent and in rural Alaska when I was there, and then became the superintendent in Fairbanks for a while, and then moved to the university level. His name's John Monahan. When I first started in education, I asked John what his best advice was, and he said, "Shut up and listen." So it's one of those weird things I've never forgot, that one little snippet in time, one line from one person. And I would not give that advice that's from a mentor to me. I would not give that advice in that way to anyone else. I would put it in different words to be kind, but he wasn't being unkind. We had the relationship to where he could say it bluntly to me. It's probably why I remember it. And I'll never forget Dr. Monahan saying, "Shut up and listen." And that can sum up for me good leadership in a lot of ways. You know, people need to be heard, and I'm always looking for better ways to hear people. So I love cognitive coaching. The cognitive coaching class, Ms. Gatlin and I both did, and a couple of our board members, Andrew Nell Brown and Whitney Diatri, have done it. And it gives us great framework for emphasizing listening in powerful ways. One of the things you learn in cognitive coaching is to pause, paraphrase, and then pose a question. And it really helps you to develop active listening. And you don't have to take the class to practice that technique: pause, paraphrase, pose a question. And so when someone is talking, listen, and then pause, and allow for some space, and then paraphrase, and sort of succinctly say back to them what they said. And it forces you to actively listen. You can't paraphrase somebody if you're not actively listening. So it's a nice little built-in trick to force you to actively listen. And then, there's research that says the simple act of paraphrasing back what someone says makes people feel heard. So if you come to my office and you have a concern and you speak that concern out to me, it might be emotional, or it might take you a while to get through it, and I'm able to say back, you're frustrated because this teacher was not clear with you on the expectations on this assignment, and you're looking for a way to get clarity on this assignment so your child can complete it. If I'm able to say back to you what your frustration is, it really makes people feel heard. So interesting. I think we had a great morning coffee today, Ms. Beyondich. We had awesome interaction with some of our parents. Thank you for contributing today, Ms. Morris, and showing us Chena on the beach in Seward. It's been a nice little sneak peek into the wonderful outdoors of Alaska. Thank you, Ms. Reed, for joining us and giving us some good things to ponder and questions about how to get our year kick-started early, or jump-started early for students to be on top of things with COVID and so forth. Thank you as always, Ms. Beyondich, for being my wonderful co-host and sidekick and support. Don't forget, we have 2 more morning coffees. Love to have folks join us or watch on YouTube or watch later on YouTube. We have 2 really good guests. Next week, we have Dr. Mary Beth Lee, who is a TEDx Fairbanks speaker, university professor. Should be fascinating. And then the last morning coffee before we go on a little hiatus will be Wednesday the 10th. And we have Mrs. Beyondich talking about our 501c3, and also Representative Lance Pruitt, and he can give us a little more insight on the legislative session that ended and funding and things to come. Join us next week and the week after for coffee.
So we've posted on our Facebook page a sneak peek to the guest for morning coffee for Wednesday, June 3rd. So you can see Dr. Mary Beth Lee's TED talk that she did, which was called Seeing the Elephant, Reintegrating Arts, Humanities, and Sciences. And so that's posted on our Facebook page, so you can get a sneak peek, and then we'll hear more from her.
Awesome. Don't forget to call the school and let Mrs. Bianch know if you want one of those beautiful Stream Academy Rapids coffee mugs, only $20. And of course that money that we raise from those goes into our 501c3, into our nonprofit that supports, it's called Stream Anchorage. And so support Stream, support our nonprofit, and have a beautiful coffee mug. Limited quantities, and they've been going pretty fast. So make sure that you get your hands on one. So when you have morning coffee with us, it can be in a Rapids mug. And that is all we have for morning coffee today, Wednesday, May 27th, the last May morning coffee of the year. Thank you everyone for joining us today. It was fun. Appreciate it. We're going to sign off on the YouTube feed.